Okay. So we're sitting here with Dom Beken of nicest, Saucerful of Secrets in Stuttgart. It's the third time with you. Welcome to Stuttgart, Dom.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, Tilo. Really nice to see you.
So this is the third time we meet in almost 6 years, right?
Yeah, third time in this theatre.
So then we had the pandemic, then we talked for a second time, which unfortunately I could not release for technical issues, and now it's the third tour you're doing, and you just returned.
Well, it's the fourth European tour
The
now.
fourth,
We just didn't
actually.
come to
Oh, wow.
Stuttgart last
Okay.
time, yeah.
Okay, you just returned from Leipzig last night.
Yeah, last night in Leipzig, which
So
was
I hope
great.
the tour has been going well so far.
Really well, yeah. Really, the audiences seem to be really enjoying it, and we think the band is getting better every time as well. So, yeah, we're really enjoying it. It's just constantly getting better.
It has to be noted that it's exactly the same great band. So that's
it's the same members of the band.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've changed the set list up a little bit. There's some new songs in there, a couple of new songs, and we've brought some back that we weren't playing on the last tour. Yeah.
So we covered a lot of topics on the very first interview. So I will put up the link in the description. People can watch the first video if they haven't yet to get some basic information.
I can't remember what we talked about, so I'll try not to repeat myself.
So the first thing I would be interested in, to hear from you about is, as with the first tours, or the last two tours, you have created a mix of sounds and music that people will hear on the first 15 minutes.
Yes, yeah, I didn't publicize that very much on the last tour, but yeah. So we always have an intro to the show that starts a quarter of an hour before, and the last 5 minutes of the intermission as well, just to get you into the mood and to set an intro to the show. So yeah, if you're interested, come 10-15 minutes before the show and have a listen to that. And this one's a lot more musical this time, and there's some little Pink Floyd Easter eggs in there as well if you listen out for them. And it's much more of a musical piece this time, building up to the start of the show with the usual loads of found sounds and little bits of found speech and stuff like that in there as well, which I enjoyed doing. Yeah.
So you actually you created music yourself. You didn't use samples.
No.
Okay.
No, it's an original.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, it's an original piece of music, and then I'm a horror. Whenever I go past a second-hand record shop, I'm always straight into the very old spoken word, dusty records that nobody ever buys to try and find, weird stuff from the 50s and 60s, and to use the spoken word stuff on things like this. I mean, obviously, it started working with Alex Patterson with the Orb, and a lot of dance music uses it. So I just thought it was good to bring it into this, and of course, Pink Floyd did it on Dark Side of the Moon as well when they did those interviews. So this just adds to the texture and the story a little bit.
Right, it's amazing. So you just mentioned that there are some changes to the set list. Can you tell us a little more about this?
Well, I guess now we're out, the cat's out of the bag. So we've put 2 new songs in. Now I'm trying to remember actually which ones we've brought back that we weren't playing before. Actually, I don't think we did in the end. So we're doing a song we found that was never released. That was it was actually a demo that Floyd did before they were even signed. Originally to enter a pop music competition in the UK in the early 60s, and they were hoping at that time they were sort of being molded into a pop group. Obviously, that went nowhere. But it was a song that they recorded just one mic. In a room in a really cheap studio called Remember Me, with Sid on vocals on it. So what I've done is we've used some AI stem separation tools and some stuff to try and pull Sid's voice out of that, and then we play along with it. And I'm making my debut on the harmonica.
Oh wow! Cool.
In there as well, a little bit of blues cross harp, which isn't on the original, but it sounded so right with the track. It's a straightforward 12-bar blues, and it's great fun to play. And we've also brought back a little whimsical thing that Sid did called Scarecrow. But that's nice because the outro of Scarecrow really kind of rocks out, and we've taken that a bit further, more into what we kind of sort of Imperial Floyd sound. So you get the sort of the bucolic and whimsical Scarecrow, which Guy sings, and then the band all come in, and there's this kind of wig out at the end. So yeah, those are the two new songs, and then yeah, we've moved other things around. Obviously, we still play echoes. I think we might get attacked if we don't play that.
Possibly.
Yeah, and a few of the arrangements have changed and been updated. So we think it's, if you've seen us before, it's hopefully different enough and worthwhile to come along and see us this time. And as I say, that I think the band's got better. The longer we play together, and we love playing together. The longer we play together, the more the connection between us kind of grows musically, which is great. Yeah. So.
It's amazing. It's a great band for sure. So.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm happy you're still in the same configuration, so it makes it really even better. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things because the five of us were. I mean, I didn't know Nick particularly well. We had kind of come across each other, but the five of us knew each other and were friendly before we started. So it was just one of those things. It was the first five people we thought of. Who do we think would be good and would enjoy playing with, and that's who we've still got. So it makes the bus journeys go more quickly.
That's right. So we chatted a bit before that interview about the equipment, and obviously, or for geeks out there, everybody can see you have this new Arturia master keyboard. But you also told me that you're not too much of a fan of constantly trying out new things, especially software. So does Arturia mean you're using Arturia stuff particularly, or?
Well, I am in the studio. I've got the Arturia Labs and the full Arturia suite, which I use loads in the studio. I mean, their emulations, particularly the CS80 stuff, is really, really nice. So yeah, I use that quite a lot in the studio. But actually, I think only one patch has made it into the show. It just, for one reason or another, I didn't need to change that much and dive into it. But I use it a lot in the studio, and the intro actually to the show has got quite a lot. I've used it quite a lot, along with the other analog synths. So I've got a Prophet at home and a Oberheim and Mini Moog and stuff. So I use that and mix it up as well with the Arturia stuff. And of course, I'm still using Spectrasonics and those other plugins. So no, I do. When I say I don't try new things, soft synths, yes. When those new ones come out, because they're easy to install and bits like that. But yeah, no, generally I try not to upgrade. Once it's working, I'd rather spend time writing music and producing music rather than trying to get something to work. I don't get that crazy gear lust so much anymore, I have to say. Which is good. It's great for my bank balance.
That's true. That's true. And you still have your trusted pedal board. I'm not sure if I remember the Golden Knights. Were they like this before?
This, I think, when did we do the first interview? Was it 2019?
That must have been 2000. Yeah.
It was 2019. Yeah. So I think actually this has changed a lot.
Yeah.
I've completely rebuilt all this because I wanted to put them all onto switches, which has really got the noise. I think we decided, actually, I was asking you who watches this. Is it mostly other keyboard players and geeks? So I'm like, I'm going to grit my teeth and try and geek out a bit more. But yeah, I had this totally rebuilt and redesigned along with my keyboard technician, Bob, who's absolute genius. He's worked with me now for, I think, well over 20 years, actually, on the studio and then more recently live. So I've now got the ES8, which runs at line level now, because these Mogafogas, which you can't get anymore, they're brilliant toys, but they like being at line level. And then the ES5 over here is on the other side of a reamper, and that's all high impedance guitar level for the guitar pedals. And then I've put another layer underneath here with some tremolo and some phaser, and of course the sound of echoes actually is a Mark I Hughes and Kettner rotosphere. And I tried a whole bunch. People don't know that sound was originally an acoustic piano that was put through a Leslie speaker. To bring a Leslie speaker on the road would just be a nightmare. And I tried a whole bunch, and the original Mark I rotosphere sounds really good and gets the sound really close. Annoyingly, because we're all on in-ears for this tour, I can't. It's really difficult to play you any sounds, so it would just be coming back from front of house. So yeah, so this has all been completely rebuilt with I'm still sticking with these Guros Echo Sexes because they've got a kind of I haven't really A/B'd them with an original Binson Echo rec, but I think they sound pretty close, and they've got a kind of a really nice grunge, which works great, and all this stuff. So I use a pair of those, the T7E with multi-heads, and they're panned hard left and right, and for sort of stereo reverbs and stuff. And then I have a pair of the Echo Sex 3s that you can tap tempo them. So instead of setting all my delays ahead of time, you know, because we're playing live and there's only a couple of songs which have clicking, and then only things like Obscured by Clouds where you've got the drum, the synthesized drum pattern on it. It's the only reason we ever use click. So it means that I can dial in and always be in time with whatever tempo Nick's working at. And you know, and it means the songs can speed up and slow down as they need to, and I can just reach over and keep banging it to keep everything in sync. And I think everything else is pretty much as it was, although we've switched over to, I've added another pair of A16Rs from Focusrite that I now send everything analog to front of house. It just works with their system better. But it's dual computers and a complete mirror rig. So there's a Red 8 pre on each. So all the analog inputs come into the mic pre's on the Red 8 pre through a handmade Orchard Electronics DI and switching system, and then out via Dante to the A16Rs that feed the front of house, again via a switcher. We've now got a pair of radial switches that handle that. And then I keep my outputs, because I've got 16 outputs altogether. I keep those up here on the on a Mackie VRZ 1642, and it's just really useful because if something isn't cutting through for some reason from my outputs, you know, rather than having to explain to the monitor engineer in the middle of a show, you know, it's actually it's channel 14 that just needs to go up or down a little bit. It's so hard to do in a show, so I can just reach over and adjust the mix of my keyboards here, and then I get a mix of the rest of the band come up on 1 and 2 from monitors. So that's basically the kind of core of the rig. It sounds complicated, but it works well. It does mean this is a little bit big, but my tech and I have talked about it a lot, and this is, although it looks complicated, it's certainly the simplest way to do what I want to do for this show. But I don't know if you want me to tell you anything else about how it's all working. Do you want me just to?
Sure.
The reason that I use Mainstage, so the computers here are basically just mixers for routing, and they also run some soft synths and samplers for pianos and extra synthesizers, strings, choir sounds for the choir on Saucerful of Secrets. Stuff like that. But essentially they work as mixers, and I would probably have preferred to use Ableton, but Ableton doesn't quite have the same routing capabilities that Mainstage has, unless you program them yourself in it's gone out of my head now. There is a programming language that works in Ableton as a plugin, and you can generate them if you're a coder, but I'm not. Because the main thing that I like to do is these faders up here on the Arturia are routed so that if I turn a fader up, then the input from the keyboards, or the direct input from the keyboards, or the output of the soft synths goes down, but the send goes up pre-fader. So these act as a wet-dry mix. So I can have any one of these pedals or even software effects as a completely wet and dry, which is great if I want to put wah-wah on something, for example, or some effects I use, you know, a ring modulator or the filter on, and you want that completely wet. And then down on the floor, I've got 2 send pedals that, depending on the patch, will send one, other, or all of the keyboards to certain effects, depending on the patch.
Okay, so these pedals are basically switches. They are not.
So these are more or less like auxiliary sends on a mixing desk, and I've got 2, and what they do varies per song. So then around here on the floor, obviously, swell pedal for the organ, wah pedal, which I use a lot in some of the breakdown sections, and funky wah organ stuff like that. And then I like to have the fast slow rotary switch instead of it being on the organ. I'm quite often playing with two hands. So I mean, especially in echoes, it's all piano over here with my right hand and organ over here. So to switch between fast and slow Leslie speeds, I don't ever have a spare hand, so I can just dive in with the foot there. I mean, that's the root of it. And the iPad is so I can watch the football during the game when it gets boring. No, it's only actually that
who thought you would ever win a penalty shootout, right?
Yeah. So actually, to be honest with you, I'm kind of supporting Spain. Don't say anything.
Shouldn't say that in Germany, but
no, I know. And you know the worst thing of all, I'm so sorry, Germany, but we're playing in Munich at 9 o'clock on tomorrow night, which is exactly the same time that Germany would have been playing in Munich. We were like, and because the game's at 9, we couldn't even wait and do the show later. So it was a disaster. No, the iPad is mostly because these pads up here and these pads down here can't change color, and every single song, every pad does a different thing. You know, I'm often using them as for percussion. Sometimes there are little spot effects, you know, blips and blops or whatever. So this just reminds me which pad to hit.
So basically, what the iPad shows is basically a still picture.
Yeah, but no, it changes every song. And I just get a little map of what all the pads are, and if there's any changes in what any of the faders do for that particular song. I mean, that's why I so like the SL Mark III, because each one of the rotary encoders at the top has a little OLED display underneath it, and that changes per song and tells me which one each of the encoders is operating. But for the pads, I like to have the iPad there, so I just remember. And sometimes it changes when we change the set list anyway, because I might have, for example, at the end of Fearless, the choir from the Liverpool Football Club, the supporters are singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." But as you swap into the next scene, I have that still playing, and where the pad is to stop it then moves. And depending on which song we play after that, it's a different pad. So yeah, I just use that as an aid memoir, you know, just so I can concentrate on playing music and not memorizing which one of 32 pads is assigned to what sound or function. So yeah, I think that's, as a quick rig rundown, that's kind of how it operates. But yeah, the most complicated thing I think was just, and the reason for main stage was working out how to do these, you know, have this many wet dry mixes, and obviously then my main subgroups, I can control the level to front of house from here. I mean, usually they're just on 100% up because I've set my preferred. But I can mix as I'm going along from the SL Mark III if I want to. So yeah, that's basically pretty much it. I mean, I use this as a controller as well as the subsequent 37 as a sound source itself as well, which is useful.
Cool. So now, if you look back on 6 years with Saucerful of Secrets,
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
but it's really only 4. We lost. It's 3.5. We lost 2.5 years.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So, how would you describe your personal learning curve with this project, with this band?
Well, funny enough, and I think I've become a better keyboard player just because I'm playing so much more keyboards now than I ever used to. You know, I mean, keyboards aren't my first instrument. Drums are. So I played keyboards because I was writing in the studio, and although I often write on guitar, I more usually write on keyboards. I find it easier medium for me. But I think it's hard to describe the learning curve because a lot of it is just that intuition that grows between musicians the longer they play together. You know, I mean, I've been playing with Guy for a very long time. He and I met in 1998, maybe 98. 97 or 98, really long time ago. We've been doing music together for ages. But yeah, with the others, it's a question of just slowly that chemistry increases and increases.
Right. So, what what will the future hold? Do you think for this project, for this band, and what are your do you have any things coming up in the future of your own stuff?
Well, I do. I mean, for us, for the Saucers, it's difficult to predict. I mean, Nick is playing brilliantly, and as far as we can tell, he certainly tells me he's really enjoying the tour and he's really enjoying playing. But I think it's not a secret that it was his 80th birthday in January.
Yeah.
It's not a secret that he's done quite well. So at the moment, I think he's feeling he'll wait and see what's going on in the world and how he feels at the end of this tour. And we would all, like to carry on and do more. But at the moment, I can't commit to anything.
Sure.
Just for those reasons. But yeah, in principle, we'd really like to. I've got a few other projects that I'm working on. I'm still doing a lot of work on video game stuff. I still am involved with my company, Snap Finger Click, and we're working on social games. I'm doing a few other bits and bobs. I quite often do remixes for other artists. I've been working with some other solo artists, a really lovely young guy from Sweden called Oscar Stenbridge. He's doing great things at the moment. A few other artists I'm co-writing a little bit with. And I've started playing with a band called Killer Star, which is two guys who wrote this amazing album and played it, strangely enough, to somebody who played with David Bowie, to Em Griner, Em Griner, and asked her if she would do backing vocals on it. And she loved it and played it to some of the other musicians who were involved with David Bowie, Mark Platty, and the other people, Mike Garson, amongst others. And so the band is now a group of really experienced musicians, and I'm coming along playing synths for them. So yeah, that project is coming along. I just did a remix for them that came out last week of a track called Go, Hold On Tight, which seems to be getting some radio play and DJs like it. So yeah, I'm keeping busy outside of this. So, and hopefully later this year or maybe early next year, I'm going to emigrate to Spain. So yeah, it'll probably take a chunk of time, rebuild the studio, but we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Okay, so we put some. Maybe I'll try to put some of these things you mentioned on the links in the description, so people can
I'll
check them out on Spotify or YouTube Music or wherever. Okay,
absolutely.
Cool. So before we forget, folks should check out the live DVD, Blu-ray, CD that is 2 years old by now, but
it is
amazing album from the Roundhouse in London, right? So,
we're all really pleased with the one thing I can say, because it's not us, we're really pleased with how the film turned out, because sometimes concert movies are not that exciting, but I think they've done a really good job with making it interesting to watch. So yeah, we're still pleased with that, and that's still out. The next question will be, are we going to release anything, I'm sure, from this tour? And the answer is, I have no idea. I genuinely have no idea. Personally, I think it would be a nice idea, but there's so many moving parts in deciding to do something like that. So whether we do or not, I don't know.
Okay. Well, Dom, thank you so much for this interview, and I wish you a great concert today in Stuttgart and a great rest of the tour, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, I don't know when this will come out on YouTube, but if it does before the end of the tour, hopefully we'll see
possible.
Some of you.
Yeah.
Superb. Yes, it was great to meet you. Great to see you again.
Thank you.
Going to hear them in a minute, and I don't want to prejudice you. Hear them and see them first, and then talk about them afterwards. 4 quick points I want to make before. The first is that what you heard at the beginning, that short bit, those few seconds, are really my mind, there is continuous repetition, and proportionately they are rhythmic. My second point is that they are terribly loud. You couldn't quite hear that.